Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming full moon taking place in the sign of Libra on the 5th or 6th of April 2023. Now this full moon happens around 16 degrees and 7 minutes of the sign of Libra, and like any full moon it is an opposition between the sun and the moon, where the sun is not really alone at this time. It holds a tight conjunction with Chiron, and also not as tight, but still a ongoing conjunction with Jupiter. So this already speaks about great expansion at this time. So whatever this full moon is going to be conjuring up in our lives, we might be feeling it extraordinarily amplified, a little bit hyper, if you will. And at the same time, Chiron, the sun, it shines a light on our wound or a wounding, or the theme or a topic of a wound and a wounding, so to speak. And, this is not someone's personal natal Chiron, even though there will be people out in the world where this full moon is exactly on either on their natal Chiron, uh, in the sign of Aries or Libra, etc., or it holds some kind of aspect with their natal Chiron, but that doesn't really matter as much. What matters is that the theme of the wound is going to be playing out either on the world stage or in our individual lives, even if we are not the subject of the wound. We can be an observer, we can be a witness, we can be someone who a wounded person is speaking to. It can be where life presents us the situation of a wound, and we are invited to contemplate deeply at this. And contemplation, with the sign of Libra, especially at this degree, why I'll speak to this about this a little bit later on, but contemplation is very much the theme here, because what is the philosophical, let's say, usefulness of contemplation, especially when life presents us, maybe at the most indirectly possible, a documentary, or a neighbor hears something and they come and relate it about a wound, maybe a tragic story, anything that Chiron might be involved. And we immerse into the story, we think about it, we contemplate, maybe we try and visualize ourselves in the position of either the victim or the aggressor, or there might not be an aggressor. Life can many times be the aggressor, if you will. So, but the conclusions that we draw, and what the story, the power of this, the wound, even if it's not our own, what it moves within us, well, that equals almost having learned the karmic lesson, be going through the same thing, but as a scenario. Yet still, power is power. Pluto in Aquarius, well, it teaches us, and it, at the time of this full moon, Pluto is exactly there, and it teaches us that sometimes when we contemplate, or in the sign of Aquarius, we make scenarios in our mind. We put the creativity of the mental sphere to good use. Just like, our species is simulating stuff on quantum computers, our higher mind does the same thing. It simulates. And that is like a partial, or maybe our own personal parallel reality that we are keeping in existence for a couple of, I don't know, tens of minutes, hours, days, some people even years. But that is a mental simulation that is when our minds are like a alchemical laboratory, like a casting stage, like a virtual reality deck, or call it whatever, hollow deck, call it whatever you want, where we can play with anything as long as we let it go after, but not let it go as in set it into the universe so it happens, but we terminate the scenario, we draw the conclusions. This is what would happen. this is what happens if I take this and this turns, choices, options, decisions, you know. This is how we anticipate. This is the anticipating mind. So very powerful in the sign of Aquarius, and Pluto gives power to it. So exactly anticipating, and in the way of contemplation, playing out the scenario, well, it actually gives us a certain experience. Now, is that experience real? Or is it, exactly as I said, a mental construct integrated as real? It's not an illusion, but neither is it real lived experience. But it's valid. It doesn't matter because it is valid. It holds power. Pluto tells us how much power it holds. Isn't that how the creator basically kind of simulated the creation of everything, and when it saw which version is the stablest, that's what it enabled. First, it dreamed everything up, and it, now I don't even know if this word even exists, Aquarianized it, if you know what I mean. And what does all of this energy have to do with the full moon? Well, it is, this full moon is ruled by Venus. It is a Venusian full moon. So giving it into the feeling gives us some kind of power, some kind of truth, some kind of clarity, some kind of understanding, or enough information or whatever for us to make a very, very important and final choice. Now, why am I, all of what I mentioned above can have so much to do with the sign of Libra, and also Jupiter, our inner most subjective truth, our subjective justice, what justice, fairness, equity, even faith means to us. And when Jupiter is in the sign of Aries, you can't even go to the person and tell them the laws of Newton or whatever, because with Jupiter in Aries, it doesn't work. The soul, the being will say, whatever I believe and I want to believe is what's real to me. And with Jupiter in Aries, that is exactly how it is. So we still have a bit of this energy until May. Why not make the best use of it? And this is exactly another layer of the full moon. Full moons usually represent the culmination, the closure, the big revelation, which is used by us as, guidance for the future, as personal wisdom. But with Libra, which has a lot to do with law, with justice, with decisions, with legally binding choices, options, etc., and in a certain way, Libra is also the creational power of the word, because it is an air sign, and every air sign has that integrated within it. So where I'm going with this is that it will determine us to make a choice or to fight for our truth, maybe in a court of justice. For some people out there, well, the energy of the full moon usually is a karmic closure or a karmic revelation. So this is where they achieve justice, or justice is a certain way and they have to accept it, because this might be the energy of acceptance. It doesn't really matter in this sense which way justice goes, but the termination of it, that it is what matters the most. And we must not forget Jupiter, Sun, and Chiron triple conjunction opposing this full moon. So it is this light, Chiron the healer, the wounded healer. This is where our wounds are also very, very strong basis for our choices. Because our wounds taught us a lot. And not just in a very philosophical and spiritual way. Aries is the sign of the first breath, of the direction, of the primal. So this is where our primal being, that which might just be the inner animal, well, it knows what it has to, and Jupiter, it holds the truth. Sometimes it holds the truth. because it is that side of our being who serves us to navigate within physical, within nature, within Aries, where there is a struggle, where there is a will, where there is Mars involved, so to speak. Mars and, the sun is extra comfortable. The sun loves it in the sign of Aries. So we must not neglect the self-centeredness of this energy. But when I say self-centered, I don't necessarily mean it in a negative way. Especially because this is a full moon, so something is reflecting upon you. And it says something exactly to the self, Aries, again. And also, another very important aspect that I would like to take into consideration, even though it's not a major astrological aspect, it is an in conjunction that the moon holds with Uranus. Uranus being at 17 degrees of the sign of Taurus. And Uranus brings the element of surprise. Uranus brings the element of the earthliness, because it's in Taurus. And remember the legally binding. Well, chances are Uranus makes it be executory, or whatever that legally binding element in your life is, well, it takes effect very, very quickly. Or almost suddenly if possible. And if you might be waiting around this time for a court ruling, anything that has to do with justice in the classic sense, Uranus may bring King Quincunx, the element of surprise. It's not what you thought. It's not what the lawyers thought. It's not what the adversary thought. It's something surprising. Maybe something never seen before, unprecedented. But isn't this how customs and traditions and the legal system are born? There is always that case. There is always that law. There is always that judge. There is always that lawyer. There is always that someone. So this might be no surprising, unexpected. Uranus, especially in an conjunction, it can truly go either way. So chances are Uranus brings an awareness. It should neither meant to delight you or to shock you in a negative way, but the feeling of it is really, really up to you. And now let's take a look at some other energies that are at play at this time of the full moon, because maybe that is how we can understand the collective and the general picture all that better. And at this time of this full moon, we have Mercury conjunct the North Node. And that means that this conjunction of Mercury and the North Node is squared, not a very tight square yet by Pluto, but Pluto, yeah, Pluto. So this is information reaches us, which is Aquarian. Maybe something collective, something from society, something from, the collective again, sorry, is reaching us, hitting us, news. Um, and it influences us because it's North Node as well. Our material, especially, I'm highlighting the material element Taurus here because on the world stage this will be economic, amongst other things. So this is where news is coming, and it's perhaps, I don't want to say bad news because it's not bad news. It is truth. Truth. The unavoidable news are coming in, but so come opportunities, chances. It comes like, I'm not even sure what analogy to use, like a meteor shower. A meteor shower will have maybe one meteor doing some damage, and that's the unavoidable. That is the element where, yeah, the impact is gonna happen, and it is what it is. But there is the other element of the meteor shower where all the other meteors that just burn up are mystical, beautiful, bring fresh elements into our atmosphere, into our planet. Those represent the opportunities. And maybe my higher mind did not use the shooting star or meteor shower symbol, by coincidence, because Aquarius in tarot is the star. It is the symbol of hope. It is the symbol of when chaos, Uranus, the ruling planet of Aquarius, being also in Taurus and conversing with the moon. So chaos can bring so very, very many opportunities, new chances. Even the meteor that hits, um, the creator still leaves something behind it. Destruction on first hand, but afterwards it's definitely the star card. If it's some exotic rare mineral, or if it helped the landscape, or I don't know, but it did something. It was a divine plan coming here. So that is what we can expect. Now I have to say what the worst possible thing is to do at the time of this full moon, and not just this full moon, the general, spring. We know that Pluto squaring the node will, how should I say, terminate, close, vanquish certain elements out there collectively within, our town, our society, our country, our political system, etc., etc. And a lot of this might be financial, businesses. So plans, Mercury will be scattered. Plans will be upside down. This is where forget your holiday plans, forget your business plans, forget your project plans, forget dates and times, because it will rearrange a bit. Now, this is inconvenient. This can strike people hard, because bills to pay and a lot, the flow might be interrupted for a bit. Now, the worst thing we can do here, that is when we empower the square, so it's a personal wrecking ball, and it will just demolish us. And karmically speaking, Taurus is the lower ego. It has to die every cycle in order for it to refresh. We have to shed off the lower ego and the old identity in order to renew ourselves, our stories, our five senses, what pleasure, value, life, joy means to us personally. And in order for us to do that, materially and physically and psychologically and spirit, needless to say all of those, we shed off. And many times this means the job is lost, there is material disruption for a few months, you don't know where to pay the rent from, or this and that. But as I said, the constructive chaos, you will be also bombarded with ideas, communication, your own creativity will trigger, and solutions will be born 100%. But if you are in doom and gloom, if you panic, if you see this as the end of the world, if you make a huge spiritual drama out of it, that my life is ruined, it's done, what am I gonna do? Of course, all of this, the fear, the panic, the shock of it, is part of the deal. No one cannot feel that, and it's absolutely fine. But if we empower that, then it's the drama and the dark night of the soul. Would we empower, for example, what this Neptune and Pisces has been teaching us for so very many years? That if we empower the Taurus again, Mercury squaring Pluto and Mercury being in Taurus, if we empower and I'm searching for the right word here, I want to say the authentic hope, but there is such a term even. When hope is anchored into a deep faith, Neptune, and value, Taurus, And also, it is feeding, from the lower ego that has just died. It doesn't matter if right now my life is so very disrupted, because I'm looking at all the good it did simultaneously in my life. And where am I going next? And immediately you're there. Life comes with solutions. Why? Because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. Your deep faith, the deepest faith, has to manifest. It doesn't have a choice. It has to manifest. This is what basically the alchemy and astrology says. And it will manifest now more than ever, because there is still a strong trine at the time of this full moon between Mars and Saturn. And that is manifestation energy. And the energy comes from the past. Both Pisces and Cancer represent past. So that if the lower ego, that is dying is the fuel, you can imagine that your highest principles were always the same, even if basically your identity and the nitty gritty in that was not the same. But your highest principles were the same. So those now return into your life as blessings. People helping you, family being supportive, the universe, divine, your own unconscious guiding you to the best possible places, solutions. Synchronicity is overflowing in your life. You feel the support of your ancestors, spirit guides, an invisible presence that just, you know that it's there and you know that it's gonna be okay. Would you, give even more power to this? That is when, exactly at the moment of deep crisis, the biggest miracles are gonna be born. So why shouldn't the miracle of it be the surprise factor in the quincunx between Libra and Moon and Libra and Uranus? And another energy which is, a little bit technicality, but at the time of this full moon, Venus is conjunct. Venus, currency and stuff like that, currency value, and collectively out there, everything that we might desire collectively is conjunct a fixed star named Capulus. And it's not a very benevolent one. So we might be at this moment seeing, a sudden drop in certain values, where there is market leader in something, the leader is very quickly losing his head. So the leader's downfall. And, businesses usually opened or launched or whatever when Venus is conjunct this Capulus, this not so favorable fixed star. Well, this is where they might rise very quickly, but their downfall is just as quick. And if this wasn't enough, and why am I including Venus? Because she is the ruling planet of the Libra full moon, basically. So what aspect she holds is quite significant in this sense. Of course, she does hold an absolutely beautiful major aspect sextile with Neptune. So this gives power to dreams. This gives power to faith. This gives power to wisdom of, of the primal senses, Taurus. When the divine guides us through our primal senses, as it would animals miraculously out of danger. I'm sure there is a small video on YouTube, TikTok, and every platform, and I'm sure most of my viewers probably seen it, where there is on Galapagos Island or something like that, a little lizard surrounded by zounds, I don't even know millions of snakes. And the little lizard makes a run for it. And the snakes, like, really, all of the snakes, like, just run after the lizard, and you see them entangling up. You see the big struggle of the snakes. One almost bites the little lizard, yet still the instinct of the little lizard does not fail. He almost teleports away, from the snakes. And that is nature's magic, which is also alive within us. And Taurus, everything in Mercury in Taurus, North Node in Taurus, Uranus in Taurus, Venus in Taurus, and every other minor object in Taurus tells us that our Sedna, and I am going to be speaking about Sedna in a moment, is very, very important, because wisdom and, everything that we need is held also in nature's intelligence within our senses, our primal senses. Our primal senses can guide us to where we need to be. Venus is the love, and Neptune, well, the divine source. And the sextile, if we follow our deepest feeling, we are getting somewhere. Financially, value-wise, in love, in anything Venusian. So even if financially out there collectively this is not a very pleasant moment, a smaller scale financial crisis just like in 2008, 9 and 9, it is what it is, but there is a lot of solution and creational energy in the air. And also at this time, Eris, goddess of discord, also an energy which represents chaos, and Eris is the deity of creative chaos, the nurturing side, the motherly side of chaos, like Tiamat, if you will. She's conjunct Vesta. So the chaotic opportunities, the side effects, the ripples of this impact, financial impact, value impact, job is, all of these inconveniences. The trip is suspended. The company that I don't know what with, just bankrupted, so what am I gonna do now? Stuff like that. Now, there is that's the main nuance, but the ripples that it creates, like, shower opportunities at everyone else. So usually when there's big financial chaos, it is exactly the poor man's, and to understand poor man symbolically, but aren't we all poor man, the poor man? Up, that is where it's the heaven, because something showers at the poor man. This is where when the Titan falls, an elephant, a mammoth dies. It's tragic for everyone, even to the full of wholeness of nature, because, well, it's such a beautiful creation, and they don't reproduce all that quickly, so they're quite kind of rare, But for the colony of ants and every other scavenger, it's heaven. You know what I mean? So there is this side of it, this energy, so it doesn't matter how we might get shocked collectively speaking, because there is always some good with it. And this Neptune and also Saturn in the sign of Pisces demands of us, and actually it demands. It is a astrological, a spiritual demand for us to use our faith, our control over our emotions, our psyche. If we have any kind of spiritual skill, talent, knowledge, you tap into that maximally and use it, not just to protect and guide ourselves and create for ourselves, manifest for ourselves Saturn, with prayer, with karma, If you know that you have oceans of good karma out there, at a moment like this, Saturn gives you a certain measure of control. Help me now and help will come. Help will come without. And this is exactly where, if you had always this spiritual inclination to read that book of prayers, to buy that icon of Saint I don't know who, to buy that, I don't know, there are so many religions out there that my mind just gets burned out just by wanting to retrieve any example, not to offend anyone, of course. So go pilgrimage to that holy place, visit the shrine of, do it. Because chances are, under Saturn and Pisces, a spiritual sacrifice that you make, and the spiritual sacrifice of your effort, maybe money to travel, or the deep commitment to actually go and do it, or that 10 minutes a day, but every day for 5 months, that you read the prayer or whatever, that works miracles at this time. And trine Mars in Cancer, the shell, would you be kind enough to extend this spiritual shell, this bubble, this shield, aegis of yours to your loved ones or whoever? You can imagine that the universe will smile back at you with a very wide smile. And perhaps one of the most beautiful aspects out there, Saturn sextiles the North Node. And this Mercury as well right now. Actually, the sextile between Saturn and Mercury is perfect. It is very tight. So, if we exclude the North Node, I would say speaking words of faith, encouragement, optimism, beautiful words, healing, soothing, encouraging, whatever, blessing, especially blessing, with your words and even thoughts, reflecting the beauty and true value in others, ignoring the self for a moment, because that's the death of the lower ego. I don't matter. It's, this is where Taurus should be about: the self-love, self-care, self. But if you go against that, if you say, okay, what I would do to myself, this time, right now, I choose to do for another person. Would you bless them and reflect beauty at them, compliment them, but honestly, not, don't feed their ego on a truly heartfelt compliment. This is where you just invite divine work, grace, miracles into your life and the life of your victim, the person who you're blessing ultimately. Being kind, but when I say kind, this is where kind in with your thoughts, with your gestures, with your intention, with your words, especially with your communication, not necessarily money and all of that. Or Venus into sensuality, choosing to be sensual to people out of kindness, whatever that means. It will truly conjure up miraculous divine energies that will go so very hand in hand with Pluto and Aquarius. Because when you quantumly interweave yourself with other souls who follow the same principle, connections happen, solutions happen, meetings happen. It can get very real. And just by your mindset, just by your thoughts, just by thinking beautiful thoughts, you can truly conjure up miracles. Because if, let me give you an example. And this, I can almost guarantee that it works. Let's say if you need to walk to work or have walks every day or very, very often, just bless mentally people who walk, the bypassers. You're a bypasser, other bypassers. Bless them. Wish they're good. If you see someone like not so fortunate, wish them good, wish them help, wish them enough self-esteem, to their souls to generate self-esteem. Give them that look of blessing, of that smile of the divine. And for example, someone who you see very attractive, just bless them. May your beauty be preserved. Do this, and in 2 weeks, things will happen to you, or will start happening to you, and probably good things. I'm not necessarily saying that the people will reciprocate this, but the universe, the divine, their creator, peoples who you blessed, their creator will. Personally, even if, you know what I mean. The creator is never not present. Especially when you, either willingly or through provoking it with kind gestures, it will be present. And this full moon in Libra, what a beautiful moment to behold this. And Jupiter expands this. And Chiron can very well be healing with your words, healing with your gesture, healing with your truth, healing with supporting someone's truth, healing with showing beauty upon some, reflecting beauty, projecting, beauty upon someone. And I'm just looking at my notes, what I want. Oh, and I didn't finish my idea with Eris conjunct Vesta. The product of chaos can actually be shielding. Chaos at this time, we all see the destructive side of it, but we should also see the sacred side of it. Because synchronicities, fortunate coincidences are just chaos. Hazard is chaos. And hazard saves. This reminds me of that song, O Fortuna. And I'm not sure who the author is because it's someone very famous. So big shame on me. But the Latin lyrics of it actually speaks about fortuna, fortune, who is ever changing, who gives but takes equally as easily, who is ever capricious, who can never ever ever be trusted. Yet we are so in love with her. We love her, as cruel, as capricious, as sometimes unforgiving, while other times absurdly generous and loving she is. We still love her. So, yes, at this time of the full moon, we will see the ever-changing side of Fortuna herself, the luck, which Jupiter is so very connected to. So this can be a very lucky full moon, if that even makes sense, because luck is so very questionable and so Libran in a certain way. Because when the dice are rolled, perhaps the outcome doesn't really matter. Both for the winner or the loser, the adventure truly sinks in. Whatever the outcome is, it was the path leading there. That was the fortunate element truly. But at the same time, fortune, excess, way too much easiness spoils. It terminates the magic of any story. So on the world stage, we will see some legal cases, fights for justice. And when I say fights for justice, Saturn trine Mars. The past, digging up the past. Mars in Cancer, very territorial, borders, ethnicity, everything that was done in the past. And Cancer has a lot to do with health workers. So the COVID, what was done? Pluto, in the sign of Aquarius. People will demand their rights back, money back. People will have this, and astrology is just a psychological tendency, not really a prophecy. Not that it is what's going to happen, but the psychological tendency, one way or another, will be to punish the politicians, punish the representatives, to strike back against them. So this is quite a revolutionary energy. But the first expression of this is in courts of justice. So there will be heated, very, very heated legal battles. There will also be very surprising, questionable alliances politically happening on the world stage that might cause a lot of instability later on. Maybe in 2024, but it can also be in the beginning of summer. We shall see, because especially at this time, nothing is set in stone. Now, another element which I would like to mention is that, psychologically speaking, the darkest expression of the divine feminine is going to be, at its finest, displayed at its finest. Because that planetoid Sedna, which is herself a beautiful expression of the divine feminine, especially the purity of her self-sacrificial tendencies, her sacredness, the sacred rebel, all those virgins, for example, who chose rather death than to marry the wrong person or to be taken away from their service to God or any other deity. Sedna is their symbol because their death or their martyrdom, their sacrifice, well, not only was it not in vain, but it produced huge ripples in the ether. So physical reality changed. They changed physical reality basically. They are considered as either deities or saints or their story not forgotten because that purity that they held impressed all of creation basically, from elementals to demigods to gods to the demiurge and creator itself. And Sedna is that symbol. But, however, unfortunately, she meets the seven sisters, the Pleiades. And they are a group of stars, seven stars, a kind of constellation. Now, they do represent, in a certain way, the seven virtues, the power of the seven dignities, the most supreme and sublime expression of the archangels, the divine beauty itself within the virtue. Yet they also have their shadow side, the seven sisters of sin, who were so very powerful that they prophesied to him, to his face, into his eyes, King Solomon's demise, with all the divine holy power that he held, with all the sigils and the help of Archangel Emmanuel. The seven sisters symbolically, magically defeated him. He could not conquer them because their words and their prophecies and the way they represented themselves echoed within King Solomon's heart and corrupted it from that moment onwards forever. In many occultists and historians do believe that it was the conjuring of the seven sisters that actually corrupted King Solomon and turned his story into something not so favorable, and through his story basically modern occultists managed to bind a lot of demons and a lot of big power players, even Pleiades the stars, out there to do their will and to trigger historic events to play out as they will, or certain people, for example nations, to be 100% sure to be corrupted by a sin, one specific one, which was hand in hand with them and their karmic line. But if that was amplified, even a large group of people, a collective, they succumb to a sin. Greed, cowardice, etc., etc. Every nation has its sin, his primal sin that corrupts it. For always, every country, every ethnic origin has a karmic weakness. And that weakness is one of the seven sisters. God forbid if more. But yeah, so everyone, every nation, Taurus, every part of nature, even the animal kingdom, even the floral kingdom, is one way or another friends with one of the seven sisters. And when Venus is Venus will conjunct her, but Venus conjuncts them every single year, so Venus is not really that important. Sedna here. You can imagine that pretty much says divine wrath, because the epitome of impurity, the seven sisters, the seven mortal primal sins that corrupt even divine being, even the celestials, as in Lilith is not part of the seven sisters, but Lilith did have command over their power, so to speak. And so very many occultists, and so very many astrologers like John Dee. Anyway, Sedna conjuncting this, it will trigger stuff on the role stage out there, where it can either play out as martyrdom, but it can also play out martyrdom where the martyrdom itself causes an uprising and a tradition, a custom, a law, legislation. Why? Because, Libra, full moon, Jupiter, um, and Neptune and Pisces, how it always used to be, the deeper past, it changes. Something which was not supposed to change changes due to a sacrifice, due to an ultimate sacrifice. And this is female energy. Now, on the other hand, the negative expression of this, when purity is tainted, and this will bring out the darkest expression of the divine feminine, when women can control their own kind as well, and men and everyone else, with their female tricks, with their how should I say, alchemizing love into a certain way. For example, supporting someone's delusion lovingly and making sure that that person will be Don Quixote forever, chasing an illusion forever and never having free will. That is something that the divine feminine in the darker expression is also masterful at. Again, we have to go back to the example of Lilith. She done it with Samael, so she can do it with anyone. Um, anyway, what I'm actually want to say here is that this will also play out as probably a earth event, when I say physical earth, or a nature event, where there will be some kind of life lost, but in nature, not necessarily human. Nature, like a natural calamity, where purity is tainted and lost. Maybe pollution, like a pollution spill somewhere, or pollution or radioactivity or something like that, because Sedna is extreme. Or, this can also play out as, news reaching that a certain very famous female VIP or world leader, or female, very, very powerful, iconic, world famous female, is exposed as whatever she is, her darker self. So we shall see this, how this might play out on the world stage, but of course alchemically it will play out in the heavens above. Because as I said, the principle of purity will battle the seven sisters. Their energy will mix, not a real battle, not as in a biblical battle, but alchemically, two substances, elements, counter one another. Anyway, and I would like to leave the last bit, which I personally believe to be the best, for the last. And this is the Sabian symbol of this Libra full moon, because I find this so very beautiful. So the Sabian symbol is a retired sea captain. Again, the closure, the revelatory, the peace bestowing nature of this full moon. And also, this is the third degree of what astrologers call via combusta, the path of combustion. So this also, potentially, why not, has an element of greater peace to it, acceptance, closure, finally the choice being made and you being more than happy with it. And collectively out there, peace, retired sea captain. The sea captain was very Aries-like. Exactly, the sun in Aries, because that's the captain. The captain leads. The captain, does the important decisions and is the head of the operation. That's why it retired. But when it reaches its retirement, everything that it has done in his life is now reflected back at him. And that is peace. when all your actions, looking back at them, Venusian like contemplating them, you just find peace. Each and every contemplation memory that jumps into your mind, and all that you can feel is that you wish that your life was none other way than it was. You are perfectly in acceptance of your story, of your life, of your soul's path, of your being. Is this not the most beautiful closure ever? Retirement. But retirement means that the person steps into the golden age of its existence, when life is truly his. But not in an adventure Aries way, but rather in a, how should I express this? In an intimate way where it's that person, the retired person, and reality in its whole. You know, the consort of that person becomes reality. And that person, as they start advancing in age even more, they will be reduced to a child, but as they become, with each passing year, more of a child, more innocent, the divine becomes that much more like a caring parent to them. So truly, retirement is going back to childhood, really. It should be beautiful. That's why Pluto and Aquarius. And Aquarius, in certain branches of astrology, is exactly the years of retirement, the 11th house. So, Pluto, everyone, all of us, every living being on this planet is responsible, not financially and in that sense, just soul-wise, to make the retirement of our I don't know, humans who have reached that cycle of their life pleasant, tolerable, nice. That is our duty, because all of this energy is also about our ancestors. Saturn in the sign of Pisces. In the next 2.5 years, our ancestors are almost with us, shoulder on shoulder, just that they're invisible, but they're here. And they expect honor and for us to truly sanctify their work from us. And so this is where we truly need to tap into the better side of us. But at the same time, this retired sea captain, well, it means that someone will take its place. Someone fresh, someone new. And the peaceful nature of it means that maybe that captain has all that much beautiful retirement because he trained who takes its place. So, regardless of what this Pluto squaring the nodes of the moon might bring dish to the table at this time for all of us, there is this element of peace, of acceptance, of stillness, of just being happy with however our lives played out till now, and whatever has to leave us. As I said, let go of attachments. Let us not be Sedna. Exactly Sedna's example. Her legend says that she clung onto the boat that her father ordered for her to be sent out on, to be thrown into the ocean. When she was thrown into the ocean, she clung onto the edge of the boat, but she didn't let go, so they had to chop off her fingers. So let's not do that. Let's not be Sedna. We don't need our fingers to be chopped off. We can just let go and go with the flow. No one, maybe Sedna wouldn't have necessarily had to become a sea deity at the bottom of the ocean if she wouldn't have, cling on to the boat. Maybe she would have become a different kind of sea deity. But anyway, this is silliness already. What the fate of Sedna, let's not do her like her. Let's not cling on to the old values. Let's not cling on to fear. Let's not be the rigidity of Taurus. Whatever has to leave us, let us allow it to leave us and dignify it. And sure enough, Pluto, the power of faith even, will bring the next the new, whatever the new power in our life is after the old leaves us. So thank you so much for listening. I do hope that this was helpful and useful. And I'm so sorry for this really long video, but we are experiencing and living times which do need a lot of explanation. Especially those who are already heavily immersed into the Saturn and Pisces energy, the alchemy of it. So thank you so very much for all the love and support. If you'd like to support me and my channel, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you again. Until next time.